There is a structure in this country that is so precisely built, engineers still cannot fully explain how it was done. There is a desert so strange it looks like another planet. And there is a place deep in the Sahara where the water is so dense it is physically impossible to sink. These are not legends, these are real places, and they are all in Egypt. This is our countdown of the 10 best places to visit in Egypt, and by the end of this video, at least one of these will completely change what you thought you knew about this country. Let's get into it. Number 10, Dahab. Most people who visit Egypt never make it here, and that is exactly why you should. Tucked along the southeastern coast of the Sinai Peninsula, Dahab is one of Egypt's best-kept secrets. Once a quiet Bedouin fishing village, it has grown into a laid-back traveler's haven without losing its soul. The first thing you notice when you arrive is the stillness. After the noise of Cairo or the buzz of Hurghada, Dahab feels like someone turned the volume down. The air smells of salt and grilled fish. The water is a shade of turquoise so vivid it almost looks painted, and the surrounding desert mountains glow copper and orange as the sun goes down. The town's waterfront promenade is lined with cushioned rooftop restaurants where locals and travelers sit together for hours, eating fresh seafood, drinking mint tea, and watching the stars appear one by one over the Red Sea. Nobody is in a hurry here, but what's hiding under the water is what shocks people. Just north of town, the Blue Hole, a submarine sinkhole dropping hundreds of meters into darkness, is one of the most iconic and dramatic dive sites on the planet. Even if you never dive, snorkeling just off the beach puts you face to face with parrotfish, angelfish, and gliding sea turtles within minutes of entering the water. Dahab is Egypt's best-kept secret, but our next stop is so remote, the people there actually speak their own language. Number 9. Siwa Oasis. Deep in the western desert, close to the Libyan border, lies one of the most remote and enchanting places in all of Africa. Siwa Oasis is a lush green paradise surrounded by hundreds of miles of golden sand dunes. A place so isolated that its people developed their own language and culture over thousands of years. The Siwans are Berber, not Arab, and their way of life here feels entirely separate from the rest of Egypt. Here is something most people don't know. The natural salt lakes just outside town are so dense with salt that you float effortlessly. You lie back, let go, and the water holds you completely. Alexander the Great crossed the same desert to consult the famous Oracle of Amun, whose ancient temple ruins still stand here today. Standing among them while the desert stretches out in every direction, in absolute silence, is a genuinely humbling experience. The date palms that line every street produce some of the sweetest fruit in Egypt, and in the evenings, when the great sand sea catches the last light of day, the dunes turn deep red and the sky behind them goes violet. Siwa moves at its own ancient rhythm. 2 or 3 days here feels like stepping into a world that time completely forgot. But as quiet as the desert is, Egypt's next destination is loud with history, and it's home to the greatest concentration of ancient monuments on the planet. Number 8. Luxor. If Cairo is Egypt's beating heart, then what you are about to see is its soul. Luxor sits on the site of ancient Thebes, once the most powerful city in the world. And the question you will keep asking yourself here is, how? How did one civilization build this much, this well, this long ago? The Karnak Temple complex stretches across an area so vast it took over 2,000 years to build. Walking through its forest of towering columns in the early morning, before the crowds arrive, is something you will not forget. The stone is warm to the touch. The carvings are impossibly detailed. The scale makes you feel like you have shrunk to the size of an insect. At night, the Luxor Temple glows against the dark sky right in the heart of the living city, motorbikes weaving through traffic around it, the call to prayer rising over the rooftops, the smell of koshery and grilled meat drifting from nearby restaurants, ancient and modern, side by side every single night. Cross to the West Bank and you enter the Valley of the Kings. The painted tomb walls inside are so vivid, so perfectly preserved deep blue, burnt orange, leaf green that it genuinely seems impossible they are over 3,000 years old. Luxor is not just a destination, it is an education in what human civilization is capable of. Luxor will leave you speechless. But our next stop will slow you down completely. This is where Egypt begins to feel like Africa. Number 7. Aswan. Aswan is where Egypt begins to feel like Africa and where the Nile is at its most beautiful. Wide, slow, and dotted, with islands covered in palm trees and Nubian villages painted in vivid shades of blue, yellow, and pink, this stretch of the river looks like it was designed to be photographed. but Aswan rewards the traveler who slows down and walks into it. The famous Aswan souk in the late afternoon is packed with locals doing their daily shopping. Sacks of spices piled in doorways, the smell of cardamom and dried hibiscus in the air, merchants calling out greetings in Arabic, Nubian, and English all at once. It is one of the most genuinely atmospheric markets in Egypt. And then there is this. Take a felucca, a traditional wooden sailing boat, out onto the Nile at sunset. Watch the light turn the water gold, watch the fishermen drift past on the opposite shore. It costs almost nothing, and it is one of the most peaceful hours you will spend anywhere in this country. Just outside the city, the Philae Temple sits on its own island in the river, one of the most beautifully situated ancient monuments in the world. Aswan is calm, colorful, and quietly unforgettable. And now, a city that most people think they know, they don't. Number 6. Alexandria. Most people think of Egypt and picture desert. Alexandria will completely change that image. Sitting on the Mediterranean coast, Alexandria was founded by Alexander the Great in 331 BC and became the intellectual capital of the ancient world, home to the Great Library of Alexandria, which held more accumulated knowledge than anywhere else on Earth. The Lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the original 7 wonders of the world, once stood on this very shoreline. Today, the city carries that history lightly. The air here is cool and salty. The pace is slower than Cairo. Couples walk the Corniche in the evenings, while fishermen cast lines into the Mediterranean below. Old men play backgammon in seafront cafes, and the sounds of traffic mix with the sound of waves. The seafood here is exceptional simple restaurants where the catch of the day sits on ice at the entrance and gets cooked with nothing more than lemon and olive oil. After Cairo's intensity, Alexandria feels like a long, slow breath out. A city that once held more knowledge than anywhere else on Earth and still carries that weight quietly in every stone and every street. This next place is where things get surreal. Number 5. The White Desert. At this point, you might think you've seen everything Egypt has to offer. You haven't. Stop for a moment because this next place is unlike anything else on this list. Most people who visit Egypt never go here. It requires effort to reach, but those who make the journey almost never stop talking about it. In central Egypt, in the Farafra Depression, there is a landscape so alien, it looks like it belongs on another planet. Thousands of chalk-white rock formations rise from the desert floor, sculpted by centuries of wind into shapes that resemble giant mushrooms, sleeping animals, and abstract sculptures. The silence out here is total. No traffic, no voices, no wind, just the sound of your own footsteps. Most visitors arrive on an overnight camping tour from the nearby town of Bahariya. Your guide builds a fire and brews Bedouin tea in a blackened kettle while the stars multiply overhead until the whole sky is white with them. You sleep directly on the desert floor, surrounded by those ghostly formations. And then sunrise. The entire landscape turns pink and gold and soft. For a few minutes, it is one of the most beautiful things you have ever seen. The White Desert is Egypt's most underrated wonder. Most tourists never get here. You should. We've seen the alien desert, but now we're heading to the coast to see a world beneath the waves that most people think only exists in documentaries. Number 4, the Red Sea Riviera. If you told someone the best diving in the world was in Egypt, most people wouldn't believe you. But the Red Sea coast is exactly that. The water along the stretch around Hurghada and El Gouna is extraordinarily clear, visibility often beyond 30 meters, and the coral reefs beneath the surface are alive with dolphins, sea turtles, reef sharks, moray eels, and hundreds of species of brilliantly colored fish. Snorkeling here for the first time, many people simply stop swimming. They float in silence, staring down, completely unable to believe what they are looking at. El Gouna, just north of Hurghada, is a resort town built across a series of lagoons and islands connected by bridges and waterways. In the evenings, its marina fills with light and music, and the reflections shimmer across the still water. It has a quiet, boutique quality more intimate than Hurghada's busier strip. The Red Sea coast is the part of Egypt that surprises people the most. They come for the history, they come back for this. But as impressive as the nature is, nothing prepares you for the monument that was literally moved to keep the sun in the right place. This one will make you stop and rewind. Number 3, Abu Simbel. Earlier, I mentioned a structure so precisely built that engineers still cannot fully explain it. This is not that one. What you are about to hear is actually more extraordinary. Abu Simbel was carved directly into a sandstone cliff over 3,200 years ago by Ramesses II. 4 colossal statues of the pharaoh guard the entrance, each standing over 20 meters tall. Most visitors describe their first sight of it the same way you come around a bend in the road, and suddenly they are just there, enormous and impossible against the blue sky, and you stop walking without realizing it. But here is what makes Abu Simbel unlike any other monument on Earth. In the 1960s, when the Aswan High Dam was built and Lake Nasser began to rise, these temples were about to be permanently submerged. In one of the greatest feats of engineering and international cooperation in history, the entire complex was cut into over 1,000 blocks, moved 65 meters uphill, and precisely reassembled. All of it to preserve one specific detail. Twice a year, on the 22nd of February and the 22nd of October, a beam of sunlight still travels 60 meters through the inner sanctuary to illuminate the face of Ramesses II, exactly as it did 3,200 years ago. They moved an entire temple and kept the sunlight in the right place. Abu Simbel is worth the journey from anywhere in the world. We've been deep in the desert, on the coast, and in ancient temples. Now we enter a city where all of it collides at once. Number 2, Cairo. Cairo is not a city you visit. It is a city that happens to you. Home to over 20 million people, it is one of the largest cities on Earth, a place where ancient history and roaring modern life collide at full speed, often on the same street corner. The sounds hit you first. Car horns layered into a constant, almost musical chorus. The call to prayer rising simultaneously from hundreds of minarets. Street sellers, children, motorbikes, vendors. The city never fully sleeps, and at 3 in the morning there are still people in the streets. Cafes still open, the smell of shisha and grilled meat in the warm air. The Egyptian Museum holds the most important collection of ancient artifacts in the world, including the entire contents of Tutankhamun's tomb. The new Grand Egyptian Museum near Giza is now the largest archaeological museum on the planet, with over 100,000 objects on display. Walking through it feels like walking through the entire span of human history in a single afternoon. The Khan el-Khalili Bazaar in Islamic Cairo is a labyrinth of narrow lanes packed with spice merchants, jewelers, perfumers, and textile sellers. Lose yourself in it and you will emerge 2 hours later, slightly dazed, smelling of oud, carrying things you never planned to buy. Cairo rewards the curious. The more you explore, the more it reveals. And number 1, the Giza Plateau. We have now reached the place I mentioned at the very beginning, the structure so precisely built that engineers still cannot fully explain how it was done. The pyramids of Giza are the most iconic structures ever created by human hands. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, built over 4,500 years ago, was the tallest man-made structure on Earth for nearly 4,000 years. It is the only one of the original 7 wonders of the ancient world still standing. And standing, in this case, is an understatement. What no photograph prepares you for is the scale. People who have seen images of the pyramids their whole lives consistently describe the same moment when they arrive, they step out of the car, look up, and go completely silent. It is not just that the pyramids are large, it is that they are more physical, more present, more real than any image has ever suggested. The limestone blocks at the base are taller than a grown adult. There are 2.3 million of them in the Great Pyramid alone. In the early morning before the tour groups arrive, you can walk the plateau with almost no one around. The Sphinx sits in its hollow in the rock, watching the horizon as it has for 4,500 years. The light is soft and golden. The pyramids cast long shadows across the sand. Local guides, many descended from families who have lived beside this plateau for generations, will tell you that no matter how many times they come here, they still feel something they find difficult to put into words. You can study the engineering, read the history, watch every documentary ever made, and then you arrive and you realize that none of it was quite preparation enough. For 4,500 years, nothing humans built came close to this. And standing in front of it, you understand why. There is nothing else like it on Earth. And somehow this is still just a fraction of what Egypt holds. Those are the 10 best places to visit in Egypt. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and click subscribe. Thanks for watching.